Well, hi everyone. My name is Elizabeth Ward. I'm a senior admission counselor in our Office of Admission. I do also happen to be a Providence alumna, class of 2015. And I am here with my colleague Diana Gingles and a number of other members of the Friar family. And tonight's session really is just to help our prospective students understand what that Friar family means, yes, during your 4 years, but more importantly, what it means beyond the college as well, and how that alumni network really does stay strong and connected beyond your time at Providence. So we do have wonderful alums with us today, and I'll let Diana introduce herself as well, but really just want to help all of our students understand kind of that greater network that we are all so proud to be a part of. But Diana, if you want to.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. And again, my name is Diana Gingles. I'm an Associate Dean of Admission at Providence, also a 2008 graduate, and certainly happy to help lead this session, really to allow all of our prospective students to understand a little bit about the different people who are part of that Providence College community. As Liz mentioned, that Friar family, what does that mean? Certainly during a student's 4 years on campus, they're going to make lots of connections, but also there's some different defining moments that are part of every student's college experience. And what does that mean carrying forward beyond just those 4 years? So we are going to start off certainly introducing some of our different alumni who are joining us here tonight. If each of you could mention your hometown growing up, your Providence College major, any involvement or research that you were part of, any internships during your time as a student at Providence, and then also what you're currently doing now, and where you're living, where in the country you might be, and then we'll lead off from there with some further questions. But Tyler, do you want to start us off?
I'm actually just, going to jump in for one quick second just to say, sure. Prospective students, if you have questions moving forward, send them along in the Q&A. We will answer them throughout the night. But yes, Tyler, if you want to get started and take it away.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Tyler Mead. I'm from Sparta, New Jersey, originally, class of 2018, so graduated a couple of years ago. I was an accounting major and a finance minor. While I was at PC and involvements, I was, I worked for the admissions office. So that's how I got to know Liz and Diana and Kyle as well. I also just, within another range of activities, there's intramurals, Friars Club was a tour guide group that we have on campus there as well, and peer ministry. So for now, I'm currently working back in New Jersey. I work at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, out of Florham Park. Currently living at home due to the pandemic, so I figure I might as well stay at home while I can. But I'll be back in Hoboken in December.
Awesome. And Steve, would you like to go next?
Sure. Steve Kunze, I'm the class of 1985. Grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. I was a political science major with a concentration in public administration. My involvement on campus was with the Big Brothers and Sisters, and I was the vice president for the Board of Programmers, and I was a member of the Knights of Columbus, and had several summer internships, most of them being a political science major, were with the City of Boston or with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And currently I reside in Washington, D.C., and I'm currently the Deputy Chief Financial Officer for the Department of Commerce.
Awesome. Terrific. And Claudia, would you like to go next?
Sure. My name is Claudia Norvius. I am a 2009 grad. I was involved on campus. I was on the commencement corps, and I was part of the African American Society as well. And I've kept in touch with the admissions office through Diana through the past years, doing lots of college high school college fairs. So I've been involved. I know with COVID, it's been a little difficult to schedule those, but hopefully we'll ramp up soon so I can visit some more high schools.
Awesome. Thanks, Claudia. Christine.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Christine Bagley. I am from the class of 2006, which seems quite some time ago in my mind, but still feel PC is close to my heart in many ways. Grew up in Milford, Connecticut, and wanted out immediately after high school, so really applied to colleges outside the state, but still stayed within mom's 3-hour driving radius rule. And Providence was just the perfect place for me. I entered as a psychology major a few semesters and decided not quite right for me. So changed over to English Lit with a minor in women and gender studies. For me, on campus, writing was just really what was natural for me. So I was really active on the school newspaper and the creative writing section. I did a lot of volunteering with campus ministry, Special Olympics, and special needs adults, working with special needs adults once a week, and as well as teaching yoga, kickboxing, some other fitness classes on campus, which I still do today, some almost 20 years later. After and through my time in college, I volunteered with the New Haven Alumni Chapter of Providence College alums, as well as down in the DC capital region, which is where I am now. I moved down for grad school and stayed here currently. I work for the US Department of State and the Bureau of Consular Affairs as a program analyst. And for context, if you have a passport, you've touched on the Bureau of Consular Affairs. If you've traveled abroad, lost your passport, you've touched on the Bureau of Consular Affairs if you've visited an embassy or consulate overseas. And actually just got back from a 2-year assignment as a US diplomat at our US Embassy in El Salvador, which was a fantastic opportunity to represent my country abroad and serve as a public servant. For then, I'll pause now until additional questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Christine. Kyle?
Yeah, so I'm a recent graduate, class of 2020. I'm from Farmington, Connecticut. And why I came to Providence, I think, was the liberal arts educational foundation. I knew I wanted to study marketing. I was between marketing and management, and also kind of like to Christine's reason as well. I wanted to get out of Connecticut and kind of stay within a distance as well. And in my Providence College experience, I did have an internship with State Street in Boston, which was a really great experience to connect with not only other Providence College alumni within the business, alumnus in the business, but also people from different universities, colleges, and different backgrounds, even nationally and internationally. So that was a great experience for me. And I think also another part of my involvement was the Admissions Ambassadors Program, as well as becoming a senior admissions fellow alongside working with a student worker and being a student worker in the Office of Admissions. So those roles really kept me connected to PC, and still am proud to be a PC alumni and still continue to do these events and stay in touch with Liz and Diana going forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle. And certainly one of the biggest questions is always, what was it that really was that deciding factor in making you want to come to Providence College? Anybody, feel free to jump in too. We don't have to go in specific orders.
I'll start first.
Sure.
For me, it was rather interesting because I actually had this fear that I wasn't going to get into any college. And so, because I don't do well on standardized tests when you had to take those tests. And so I ended up applying to 10 schools and actually got into 9. And so for me, I then went and visited all of the schools, and this may sound a little corny, but it was the fact that when I walked on campus and we're meeting the students and faculty, it truly did feel like I was at home. I mean, and to this day, whenever I come back, it's just like you take that deep breath and you're like, I'm back home. It's just a real family atmosphere, the collegiality between all the students, regardless of the grades. Whatever year you're in, everyone is there helping each other out. And it was very evident to me when I was visiting classes and going on the tours and looking at this campus itself. And it was actually reinforced for me because my daughter ended up going to Providence in class of 2012, and she ended up not knowing where she wanted to go. And at the end, she came out saying, it's definitely Providence. And she also said, I never would have thought I was going to go there, because she felt like it was weird going to the same school her parents went to. So, but that sort of in a nutshell is what kind of made it feel like I was just where I was meant to be.
Awesome.
I can jump in after Steve's comment. I think, you're a little at a disadvantage not feeling that, that feeling you get when you go onto a campus. But there were campus visits I went to that I made my parents drive for hours, and we got out of the car and I said, let's get right back in the car. I don't want to go here. I don't even want to take the tour. And it wasn't like that at PC at all. I think we went back for 2 or 3 tours to really, to make me feel like this is a final decision. This makes sense. It feels at home. It feels right. For me, my mother, she had me fill out a little checklist after every visit, good things, bad things, things that were memorable to me on campus. For me, it was a professor to student ratio. I was looking for a university that wasn't an overwhelming state school, that I knew my professors. We had small classroom discussions that came really helpful and in handy when you go to do your capstone or thesis come senior year. The head of the department, the professors with whom you want to work. And so I would say, think about the things, checklist or not, silly as it is or not, but really do your research, make some notes. If you're looking at several schools, things can start to maybe, you can't remember which factor goes with what school, just jot it down and really reflect before you kind of commit to where you think you'll be the best fit.
I think that's really great advice. If I think back on my college search, my dad had a double-sided 0-margin spreadsheet of questions that I had to ask at every school. I do not encourage that in any sense for any parents that may be watching right now too. But does anybody else have any kind of insight on the why Providence component?
Yeah, I think I have one proponent. It's with the Day in Friartown program. And so I did that in my senior year. That was a great experience for me, and noticing that Providence was a great community. I think that in that experience, I really was able to get to know more about Providence beyond just a tour as well. And I had been on a tour before at Providence with an older brother. He ended up going to a different school, but it was one of those things where it was a great community aspect, and I knew there's a lot to get involved in. And so I did push myself to get more involved in my time there at Providence. And I think that in that experience of the Day in Friartown program, it really felt like a welcoming environment to be a part of.
Yeah, and I think to even piggyback off of what everyone else is saying, it does kind of sound cheesy, but you walk on and you even get exposed to some of these different programs, and you just, there's this feeling that you do get, and it just feels like you're at peace, or even at home, like Stephen was saying. I think when I was looking for, so I have a twin sister as kind of a background. So when we did our school search, it was, instead of looking at 10 schools, it was looking at like 17, because it's, I had my list, she had her list, we had some of the schools that we both kind of wanted to look at. And, you go around, you obviously see everything. And, my parents were the ones on the tour to ask every single question. So, I've definitely been kind of exposed to all the different facts here and there. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me when I kind of went on my search was, it wasn't the tour guides or even that just themselves. It was just, being, seeing and interacting with people, on campus who are just kind of, passing by. There's a big thing about holding doors open for people here. And we really kind of got exposed to that the first day. And it's just the community sense that I really feel here. And it just, it really just made me feel like there was no other place I wanted to be. So, I think it was, a no-brainer for me at that point.
Thank Thank you all. And we actually have a few questions coming through the chat. So one of the first questions is from a student. She says, I go to a high school where the student-teacher connections are very powerful. These connections have helped me grow tremendously over my 4 years. Can you share a little bit about what these connections are like at PC and how they impact, and the impact they've had on you? So would any of you like to explain some of the relationships you were able to develop? I know, Christine, you mentioned a few relationships you developed. If you want to start with some of the connections that you have really valued.
Sure, happy to expand. Like I said, I ended up finding my way to the English department after a couple semesters in terms in the psychology department. But you end up meeting with your advisor, who ends up, being one of, or two, as your professor for several classes. And then there was one professor, Dr. Barber. I know he's probably many years retired now, but I took every one of his classes. And I think it finally at one point said, Bagley, are you in this class again this semester? I mean, I just every single class, because you find that you work well, you find that their teaching style is to your liking, they just pull something out of you. I purposely got up for his Civ class in the morning when he had a crazy hour to teach Civ, because he was the literature and philosophy teacher. I had to have that again and again. And so you find that relationship, you reach back out to them when you're ready for grad school applications to see what their thoughts are on where they think you should think about that, and they're always there as sort of a sounding board. Feel free for others to weigh in as well.
Yeah, I think to that point too, and even going back into Civ, I think that was, to be completely transparent, that was one of the courses I was most nervous about, just because I went in as a business major and accounting, figured it would be more numbers oriented, and writing was definitely not my strong suit. And my professors really made it office hours available for me, and it was terms of drafting out papers and kind of orchestrating my thoughts into how I want to approach certain assignments. And I remember I didn't do so well on one of my first kind of quizzes or assignments, and the professor made himself available to me, and it was more so going through this is what you should look for when you're reading, or this is how you should try to approach it, and try to put it in a way that I would more so understand. And I think the big thing that stuck with me is even after I had those professors for just a semester, it was a relationship that I kept throughout my whole time at Providence. I year 3, year 4 that I'm there, I'm still running into them around different buildings, and just to stop and catch up on different things. And whether it's talking about how the basketball team's doing, or just stuff about what I'm looking at for internships, or jobs lined up. So I think while you do look to invest a lot of time in forming that relationship with the professor is also doing the same thing for you, and they want to get to connect and get to know their students, because they're genuinely interested in helping you pursue whatever goal it is. And even if I'm a business major and I'm working with an English teacher, they're still working to help me reach my goal, even though it's outside of their specific realm. So I think that was the one thing I really took away, that I was really grateful to have that experience.
Hi there. Just wanted to jump in. I failed to mention that I am from Boston, and this kind of ties into why I felt so close to just being on campus as well. Having lived in Boston, actually before coming to Providence, I had stayed a week at UMass Amherst, and I felt the campus was way too big for me. You needed to take a bus to every class. So coming to Providence and being able to walk to every class within 15 minutes was really important to me. Be able to not get lost to get to a class. And also more for me, my connection with more of the administrative staff, because I did work study and I worked in the college events and the alumni office. So I had a lot of connections there that helped me after I graduated as well. I'm currently in events right now, not so many happening with COVID right now, but I work at the W South Beach. So I moved from Boston after I graduated from Providence and moved to Miami, and my supervisor who worked in the office did my recommendation when I was applying to jobs. So it's not only the professors, but just the administrative staff at the school as well. It definitely, and she's a dear friend to me now. We send pictures. She sends pictures of her bears. My brother just had a baby. I sent pictures of my nephew. So the connection, I think, goes all the way through from the professors to everyone in administration.
That's great. And this kind of leads into the next question that was asked by one of our students on the webinar. It's when you were in college, did you have connections with PC alumni? And how did you set up your post-college life? Did any of these connections help in setting up that post-college life? Claudia, you kind of gave an example of this yourself, but would any of you like to share different relationships that you developed with the alumni community and alumni network?
So I think I can talk about one experience. So I had one experience on my way up to work in Boston one day, and it was connecting with a Providence College alumni who worked for the Boston Red Sox. And it was one of those experiences where you kind of get on the phone and you kind of build a relationship that way. And that really grew a strong connection with kind of says a lot to the alumni network that's at Providence, and connecting with them in different ways. And we have different services now also through FireLink and LinkedIn as well. But I think now he's definitely someone that I can reach out to, or other connections I've met at networking events, especially too. So we have networking events in the Boston area, Hartford area, as well as New York as well. And I've been to those kind of events as well. And they build those strong those strong connections, I mean, that you feel connected to those people and you can connect back to them and say, maybe looking for a job in this industry, or maybe what might be a suggestion for this and that. So they're always a helping hand. And so I've definitely used that to reach out to and looking for some opportunities right now, especially.
Yeah, I think even to go off of that, one of the great things, and I think, when you get on campus as like a freshman, and, there's, we do have, the career fairs run by the Career Expo Center, and, it's a pretty daunting experience first going in, and, there's just, a lot of different things going on, a lot of different representatives from companies there. And one of the cool things I always thought that they did was, a lot of the companies try to bring in alumni who are currently working at the company, and they'll be designated because they're wearing like a little badge that says that they're PC alumni. And it was really great for that, to have that exposure as someone who can kind of tie the bridge, tie the gap between life at PC versus life now at their current employer, and try to kind of gauge the interest that way. How their experience at PC kind of helped them within their career now, and how they were able, what steps they took to make that jump. I know that was something that was pretty critical for me, and I got to connect with a lot of PC alumni who currently work at PwC, and being able to talk to them and ask them what experiences they had at PC that kind of translate into the PwC, and whether it's different classes or just anything in general. I think everyone's really willing to kind of help out and answer, and just being that alumni, I feel like connection there is just very strong, and I think that's something that really helped me kind of growing into figuring out what I want to do for my career.
That's perfect. Thank you guys for sharing that. So a few of us have now brought up that wonderful Development of Western Civilization course that we all had the opportunity to take during our first 2 years in college. What do you feel that you really gained from that Development of Western Civ program? We all more colloquially call it Civ. And what was that experience like? So Tyler, I know you said it was a little daunting coming in, especially with that business background, but what do you think you kind of took away from the Civ experience?
Yeah, I think it definitely was a little daunting. But the big thing for me, I think and something that I've realized as going and looking at career fairs and seeing what recruiters are looking for is they're looking for that well-rounded mindset that kind of comes in hand with a liberal arts education. And I think that's been a pretty heavy emphasis in the business world as of late. Just again, provides, a unique way of thinking that, maybe, going to a bigger school that kind of has a baseline curriculum doesn't necessarily provide you with, unless you go out of your way to take those kinds of courses in, philosophy or literature. And, not that I'm, quoting Dante and, business memos or anything like that, but, it really, it's allowed me to figure out, I think, to apply to stuff that I do now, how to outline an argument, and, if I have to, write a memo on, a client's, policies and procedures and, what we view them as, and, if we agree with, their approach, being able to construct an argument, form, being able to list out arguments in a clear, concise manner, and, what supporting details, I can add to that. And, that organizational structure, I felt like was really something that, was a good takeaway for me. And ultimately was, if anything else, was a really good transition class from high school to college, and kind of, understanding the expectation, from that jump too. So I think that was probably another good takeaway for me.
I'd add on top of that, even though I may have had the Western Civ experience that's slightly different than what is currently structured today, for me, it was giving you, as Tyler said, that well-rounded perspective that I don't think if I had stayed just in political science or public administration that I would have gotten to see the bigger picture. And I actually think, and Tyler spoke to it in his own way, that it gives you some of the skill sets to be an effective problem solver, which I think is what Providence College does very well. It prepares you for, with its liberal arts background and your ability to see that bigger picture through the Western Civ program, as well as what you get in your major, it gives you that perspective to be able to pull in, and you may not know it because I can't quote Dante either, but I know where to look, and I know where to get the information from, and I have reference points that I can then turn to and then use that as my resource to dive even deeper into something, to then come up with those arguments and be able to articulate them very well. I think that's really important in the area of business management, that, it's good to know the business, but if you can't articulate it and communicate well, you're not going to be able to be an effective leader or an effective individual within that organization. And that's what the Western Civ program does. It teaches you that argumentative, logical argument style. I forget if that's the right word for it, but it kind of helps you set that up. As Tyler said, you can actually build your arguments and be able to present them in an effective and a logical manner. And I think that communication skill, it cuts across all the different career fields that anyone would be looking at.
I would also add that program makes you a better observer. So you observe what's happening in the moment in time, and then what is the reaction that's happening in the arts community, in politics, in music. So you just start to see those intersections. And so I think when you have those aha moments in Civ, where that's why they were painting this painting the way they were out of anger and frustration, or this is why it was so colorful during the Renaissance, it made sense. And so I think the blending of history, when someone had mentioned you wouldn't maybe normally take X amount of philosophy, theology classes, history classes, but together they made sense. And so how does that also translate to any moment in time, that you can look back on, or look in, as now your own sort of mini Civ on your own? How are things responding? How does it make sense? What is the world doing? How can we be better observers? I think that also translates to a sort of professional setting as well.
Absolutely. I think you all explained the program in the best way possible. Sorry, Diana. Love Zoom and talking over one another. But I really appreciate all of the insight. And Christine, that was the best way I've ever heard Civ described too. So we should keep this recording for everything moving forward. I also love that final semester of the course, that colloquium aspect, spring of sophomore year, is something that you can now gear a little bit more towards your major, and combine maybe accounting and that development of Western Civ side of things, still in that interdisciplinary kind of way, but maybe a little bit more towards your topic or your major, or try something brand new and kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone that way too. We have another question from the audience asking, what are some ways you all have helped the greater community while at Providence? Steve, you may have one of the more helpful ways of talking about this with different service opportunities, but I'll leave it open to anybody.
I know being a part of the multicultural clubs, there were lots of opportunities to do things in the community. With being on the African American Society, we went to a lot of the surrounding public high schools and elementary schools. I would say with a good amount of colleges within the country, they're kind of put into specific areas that are closer to communities that are not so well developed. So we tried as much as we could to definitely get the communities around us to learn that you can go to college, that you can go through a good high school or get the right kind of education and go to the schools that you live right next to, because some people don't have that opportunity. So that was one of the main things that I did while being a part of the community. And even now I'm still volunteering here in Miami. I volunteer with the Miami Diaper Bank. And I think also, and not to harp on the religious aspect of Providence College, I am Catholic, but I think that's a part of, I would say, Providence College as well, is having that service to your community. So I think that's definitely something you'll find an opportunity for in any of the organizations that are on campus.
I would talk about two things. One is my involvement with the Big Brothers program. And I did that for 2 years while I was there, and provided both tutoring in a way and mentoring, probably in a bigger way, to some of the middle school and high school kids in the local community. And then the second part I wanted to point out is that I think it's just part of the culture of Providence College, because each of the local alumni groups, in the National Capital area, as well as others, a major component of what they do, in addition to pre-COVID, in addition to getting everyone together and, sharing the same roots of, rooting for the basketball team or the hockey team or what have you, they also bring everyone together as just a part of the normal expectation that you would expect it to happen is doing community service. And it varies in a variety of ways, as far as, helping at the kitchens to even doing, being part of the Flags Across America, as far as just recognizing the service of the veterans. So it keeps going, is what I guess I would say is my second part, that it doesn't stop when you graduate. It's a part of you, a part of the Providence College family, and you just know that that's just what's the right thing to do.
And I do have to mention too, a lot of our student clubs and organizations, they'll have their own service components. So as Claudia was mentioning, some of the different cultural clubs she was involved with, some of our different academic student clubs, they will have their own service component. For instance, our art club does an after-school mentoring program once a month at a local middle school, and then you'll also see a lot of different specific service organizations on campus. But I think too, it's really inherent to our Catholic Dominican tradition. We're also the first college campus to offer that public and community service major. So certainly that balance between being really invested within the community, and not just the campus community, but the larger community is certainly a major component of that experience, and certainly too carries forward beyond that interest in being involved in lots of capacities, carries forward beyond just those 4 years. Great.
I was gonna say, absolutely. I love that it's such a built-in piece by no means a requirement of any of our students, but I think all of our students really love having both that campus environment, but knowing that we are part of a city and giving back to it in a number of different ways. So one of our other questions that we love to ask different alums is, what's your favorite PC memory? I will give mine first. We won our hockey national championship my senior year of college, so I will always be able to say that was the best way to go out with a senior memory.
Yeah, I think that was going to be mine too. I think because I was a freshman, and I think even though it was, it's because it was in the spring. I want to say that was the when we won, and I feel like that was like one of the bigger times where it's like you finally, like, it wasn't even just like, oh, like you're all just with your own class of freshmen, then maybe some sophomores, but like it was just like the whole campus like together celebrating, and that was probably one of the cooler moments for me.
I think definitely two cool moments. Definitely going along with the athletics was beating when our men's basketball team beat Villanova during my sophomore year, and then also we beat them again in our senior year. But definitely a whole community aspect. You really noticed that it was definitely a whole community aspect coming together, and it really, like, you felt part of the whole Friar community. All the alum were there for the event, but also all the students were engaged as well. So it's definitely a great way to build that community back and kind of have it all together.
For me, it was commencement weekend, which kind of feels like I'd say prom all over again from high school. But I was also on the commencement corps and planned the event. But it's kind of like a bonding weekend. It's not always talking about classes and what teacher you're scared to speak to this time, or what. It was just like the final moment that we're gonna graduate, and we have these lifelong friendships that we're gonna continue, and you just really get to have fun with everybody. That was, I would say, my favorite moment.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Steve.
Okay, I saw yours click off too, so I wasn't sure if you were going to go. No, for me, in addition to what everyone else has already said, between the athletics and senior week and all of that type of stuff, I was also the vice president for the board of programmers, and I spent all 4 of my years working coffee houses, mixers, concerts, and then starting it all over again, and that to me was just such a involved experience. To this day, I still, when I am helping out doing things, I find out that I usually end up being on the administrative side, making sure everything's going okay, because I did 4 years of that at Providence and it just kind of never left. I want to make sure that everything's picked up afterwards, put it away, everyone gets in, everyone gets out. And it was just a great way to meet the entire student body. And as my wife would tell you, because she graduated in '86, she was like my computer memory. I am not very good with people's names. So how I got elected vice president, don't even ask me. But it was something where, we would be able to remember people and working with the folks and just kind of being able to bond with them across all the grades and all the class years. And then when we would bump into them, walking through campus, it was like, oh, that was a great concert, or that was a great singer, or thanks for the people playing the guitar, or doing karaoke night, or whatever it may happen to be. And so that to me is just sort of one of the nice memories that I have come from Providence.
And I'll just wrap up. Again, I had mentioned earlier that I was really active on the school paper. We did it for the love of writing. When nobody got credit, nobody got paid. And then we were, I'd say, close to 80 some on staff. And every Sunday night was sort of all the editors and assistant editors will come together, plan out the articles for the week. And it was just sort of a time where we would all catch up at the end of a long weekend and just kind of figure out our plan for the week. And then every night we were in that, Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday, before we went to production, and first thing Thursday morning, just sort of cranking, last minute, ordering pizza, just hanging out. And like, this is your family, right? And again, we had schoolwork first, but the school paper was just something we took great pride in. We wanted a good product every week, and they become just good members of your group of friends and family, and then having these great banquets to celebrate your hard work at the end of the holiday and end of this semester and academic year. So I would just sort of wrapping up with that, you'll find something that makes sense for you in your clubs. You'll find an activity that makes sense for you, and try it out. If it's not quite your thing, try something else. I would say the variety there at PC is just astounding, and there's something there for everybody.
I'm sorry, I wanted to mention one more because I forgot.
Go for it.
One that I looked forward to every year was Midnight Madness. I know it's changed a lot. I've seen celebrities be invited now and all kinds of fun. Before, when I was there in 2009, it was more of a, we had a dance-off event. I think it was BOP versus the multicultural group. And then it was always like, we were practicing for weeks for the dances, and then we had all these fun events, and there was so much to it. It's the beginning of the NCAA season, but it was much more than that. It was for the freshmen, the first time they get to hang out with everybody in such a large crowd. For the seniors, it was kind of going away moment of like, this is going to be our last year. So it kind of tied in everybody's experience, I think.
Yeah, and Midnight Madness last year translated into both a student and also alumni celebration. So carrying forward, they are going to have one consistent homecoming weekend that showcases our Midnight Madness celebration, because also too, so many people have enjoyed, and that's become one of their favorite traditions on campus. So certainly we so appreciate all of you for sharing some of your different perspectives and experiences with our students. Quite honestly, this is how our community connects with one another in so many different past stories and memories, and then also to really having that shared experience of being a student at Providence College. So we truly appreciate you spending the evening with us tonight, and to our attendees for some amazing questions, and we hope you came away with some great perspective on what it means to not only be a Providence College student, but also an alum.
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to echo the big thanks for our attendees, our panelists. I really do hope that this was a helpful webinar for you this evening. If there are any questions moving forward, feel free to reach out to your admission counselor. There's a number of alums in our office, but really any of us are more than happy to continue to share that story of what it means to be a Providence College student and beyond. So thank you all for joining us this evening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Best of luck. Thank you.
Awesome. And big thanks to each one of you. We appreciate it, and have a wonderful evening.
Yes.
Thank you
Stay
much.
safe.
You too. You
Enjoy
the
the
same.
night.
Take care.
Nice meeting you all.
Everybody.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
Bye.
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 Great. Bye.